Number 10. Germany Overview. When people think of Germany, many immediately picture famous car brands like Mercedes-Benz, BMW, giant mugs of beer at Oktoberfest, and the image of a country that operates with almost absolute precision. Yet behind those familiar symbols is a country with a far more diverse way of life, where modern cities, peaceful towns, and countless small rules in everyday life come together to create a very distinctive identity. Germany lies right in the heart of Europe and shares borders with 9 countries, making it like a crossroads connecting many different cultures. With an area of about 138,000 square miles and a population of around 84 million people, Germany is one of the most populous and influential countries in Europe. Its unique geographic location also makes traveling from Germany to neighboring countries convenient, while giving its cities a distinctly international character. Berlin, Hamburg, and Munich are often the first 3 names that come to mind when travelers think of Germany, but each city has a completely different personality. Berlin is the capital, known for its complex history, street art, and a lifestyle that feels somewhat free-spirited and unconventional. Hamburg has the character of a lively port city, while Munich is closely associated with Bavarian culture, traditional beer gardens, and the world-famous Oktoberfest. However, Germany is not defined only by its major cities. Away from the crowded urban centers, travelers will find many small towns with clean streets, tidy homes, and an atmosphere so quiet that it can sometimes feel unfamiliar to newcomers. This contrast between global cities and peaceful small communities creates a Germany that is both modern and deeply connected to its traditional way of life. One of the things foreigners quickly notice when living in Germany is how seriously everyday rules are taken. Sorting and recycling waste is handled quite strictly. Quiet hours are also taken seriously in many residential areas, especially in the evening, at night, and during certain times on days off. Actions that may seem perfectly normal in some countries, such as making loud noise inside an apartment or disturbing neighbors, can quickly become an issue in Germany. Personal space is also highly valued. Germans often respect personal boundaries and do not necessarily show friendliness by constantly starting conversations with strangers. This can sometimes make visitors initially feel that they are a bit reserved, but in reality, it is often simply a way of showing respect for other people's private lives. Number 9. German women. Beautiful and not easy to win. If you spend a few days in Germany, alongside the modern cities, clean streets, and organized pace of life, it is also easy to notice German women and their distinctive presence. They are often described not as having an overly elaborate kind of beauty or trying to attract every eye, but as standing out through their natural appearance, neatness, and confidence. Many women choose a style that is elegant yet simple, with light makeup, practical clothing, and little dependence on flashy trends. Their attractiveness, therefore, often comes from looking healthy, taking care of themselves, and feeling comfortable in their own bodies, rather than constantly trying to prove that they stand out from others. One important factor that shapes this attitude is independence. Many German women grow up accustomed to taking responsibility for their education, careers, finances, and life decisions. They do not assume that someone else will always step in to solve problems for them. From choosing a career path and managing money to organizing daily life, self-reliance is often considered normal. Because of this, when entering a relationship, they also tend to expect the man beside them to show a similar level of maturity. A man who is overly dependent, irresponsible, or always waiting for someone else to solve his problems may find it difficult to make a positive impression. This also gives dating culture in Germany a fairly straightforward character. If a woman is genuinely interested in you, she usually does not need to play too many mind games to keep you guessing. On the other hand, if she is not interested. Her attitude may also be expressed relatively clearly. This directness can sometimes seem a little cold to people from cultures that are used to more indirect communication, but in essence, it may simply mean not wanting to waste either person's time. They often appreciate clear conversations, consistent actions, and a relationship built on respect rather than overly showy displays of pursuit. Number 8. Germany's red light streets. When it comes to nightlife in Germany, Hamburg is one of the cities most often mentioned. This port city is known for its busy nightlife districts, where bars, clubs, and adult-oriented services exist side by side within a relatively tightly regulated environment. What makes Germany different from many other countries is not only the presence of red light districts, but also the way the government places this type of work within a clearer legal framework instead of operating entirely in the shadows or outside the law. This activity is legalized and regulated by a number of specific rules. This means that people working in the adult industry, depending on their registration status and type of work, may have access to certain rights similar to those of other workers. These can include matters such as health insurance, social insurance, income-related benefits, and the ability to seek legal protection in cases of harassment or discrimination. However, legalization does not mean that this activity can take place anywhere. On the contrary, Germany imposes various restrictions on location, operating hours, and methods of operation in order to maintain public order and reduce the impact on residential areas. In some German cities, this type of adult service is only allowed to operate in certain designated areas. Local authorities may clearly regulate where people are permitted to work, registration procedures, and related financial obligations. One rather unusual detail that once appeared in Bonn was the use of daily tax ticket machines. Workers in this field could purchase a ticket before starting their shift. It may sound strange to tourists, but it shows how Germany manages even sensitive industries through fairly specific rules and procedures. Another important point is privacy. Filming in these areas, especially at night or when people are working, may be stopped. Security staff can quickly ask tourists to stop recording because the people there still have the same right to privacy as anyone else. Therefore, Germany's red light districts are not simply unusual tourist attractions where visitors are free to film and take photos, but places where private life, business activities, and legal regulations exist side by side. Number 7. The English garden that doesn't feel like Germany. In the middle of Munich, a city famous for its historic architecture, lively beer festivals, and modern urban lifestyle, the English Garden offers a completely different atmosphere. It is one of the city's most famous parks, so expansive that once you venture deeper inside, you can easily forget that you are still in the middle of a major German city. The busy streets, buildings, and sounds of traffic gradually fade into the background, giving way to vast lawns, shady trees, streams flowing through the park, and wide open spaces. Together, they create the feeling of stepping into a peaceful natural retreat, separated from the bustle of Munich, while still remaining right in the heart of the city. For Munich residents, the English Garden is not only a famous attraction, but also something like the city's shared backyard. On days with good weather, the park comes alive with all kinds of activities happening at the same time. Joggers follow the long paths, cyclists ride beneath the trees, groups of friends spread picnic blankets across the grass, while many people simply lie down, listen to music, or talk for hours. The atmosphere here has a very different rhythm from the image of Germany, often associated with punctuality, order, and precision. That contrast is exactly what makes the English Garden special, a place where people can temporarily set aside their busy routines, relax, and enjoy the day in a slower, freer way. One thing that often surprises first-time visitors to the English Garden is its very open sunbathing culture. On nice days, many people comfortably lie on the grass, wear swimsuits, or relax in the water without paying much attention to the people around them. For Germans, this is simply a natural, comfortable, and less formal way of enjoying nature than in many other places. But perhaps the most striking feature of the English Garden is the Eisbach wave. Right in the middle of Munich, on a stream flowing through the park, a famous standing wave attracts surfing enthusiasts. Locals seem completely used to the scene, but for tourists, seeing people surf right in the middle of Munich is still a very memorable experience. It would almost feel incomplete to visit the English Garden without stopping by the traditional beer gardens beneath the large trees. This is where locals and visitors often sit with friends, order a beer, enjoy a few simple dishes, and slowly watch life in the park unfold. The atmosphere is always lively but not overly noisy, perfectly reflecting Bavaria's relaxed and friendly spirit. Number 6. Germany's strangest street foods. If Italians shocked the world with maggot cheese, Germany responds with something just as wildly strange: Milbenkäse, also known as Maite cheese. This is one of the strangest cheeses in the world. It originated in the Saxony-Anhalt region and has been documented since 1540, meaning it has existed for nearly 500 years. Milbenkäse is still made by hand today in the two villages of Wurtschwitz and Milben. What makes it famous is its aging process. The cheese is deliberately ripened with tens of thousands of tiny cheese mites crawling across its surface. Instead of removing these creatures, cheesemakers intentionally use them as part of the fermentation process. The mites feed on the outer layer of the cheese and help create its distinctive flavor, color, and texture. The aging process can last from several months to about a year. After about 1 month, the rind begins to turn yellow. After several months, it can become reddish-brown, and if aged longer, the color becomes increasingly darker. The most unusual detail is that when the cheese is eaten, the cheese mites may still be consumed along with it. This is exactly what makes Milbenkäse one of Germany's most curious foods. If Milbenkäse represents the unusual side of German food, then bratwurst is a much more familiar sight. This famous grilled sausage is often cooked over charcoal and served hot in a crispy bread roll with mustard or various sauces. Bratwurst is commonly found at markets, festivals, and street food stands, making it one of the most iconic quick meals that visitors can easily find when traveling in Germany. Another very popular dish is Flammkuchen. It has a thin crust that is baked until crispy, then topped with cream, onions, bacon, and sometimes cheese or other toppings. Flammkuchen may remind many people of pizza, but its flavor and preparation have a distinctive Central European character. Raclette offers a completely different experience. Large wheels of cheese are heated until the surface melts. Then the hot cheese is scraped directly onto potatoes, bread, pickles, or sausages. The appeal lies not only in the flavor, but also in the serving process. Watching the melted cheese being scraped onto the food right in front of you feels both simple and incredibly satisfying. German cuisine shows an interesting combination of very familiar dishes and experiences that may make visitors think for a few seconds before deciding whether to give them a try. Number 5. The dark side of Germany. Behind the image of a wealthy, modern Germany with a well-developed welfare system, there are still social problems that most tourists may not notice during short visits. One notable issue is that hundreds of thousands of people do not have stable housing. Some even have to spend the night at train stations, under bridges, in doorways, or on the streets, even when winter arrives and temperatures drop very low. Their presence creates a clear contrast with the clean neighborhoods, efficient transportation system, and high standard of living that are often seen as familiar images of Germany. More notably, housing difficulties are not limited to people who have been unemployed for a long time. Some elderly people say that their pensions are no longer enough to cover rent and basic living expenses. As prices and rents rise, some people have to turn to free food distribution points or ask for money in areas near train and subway stations. For them, every portion of free food means reducing part of an expense they can no longer afford. This reality is quite different from the image of stability and prosperity that many people often picture when thinking about Germany's economy. The causes of unstable housing are also very complex. Some people end up in this situation because of unemployment or because they only have unstable jobs. Others struggle with addiction, past experiences of violence, or mental health problems. This shows that people living on the streets cannot simply be viewed as lazy or unwilling to work. For many, they are trapped in a cycle of low income, lack of housing, declining health, and difficulty returning to the job market. A single major life event can make escaping that situation extremely difficult. However, Germany has many organizations working to support this vulnerable group. Charities, soup kitchens, and street outreach groups often provide hot food, drinks, blankets, and guidance to help homeless people find shelters, especially during the winter. This is a less visible but very important part of Germany's social landscape. Number 4. The strangest competitions on earth. Germany is not only famous for beer festivals, high-speed cars, or well-organized cities, but also for several traditional competitions, so unusual that visitors may find it hard to believe they actually exist. One of the most striking is finger wrestling, a competition associated with Bavaria. Two competitors sit across from each other at a wooden table, hook one finger through a small leather loop, and use all their strength to pull their opponent's hand toward themselves. The rules may sound simple, but a match can end in just a few seconds and requires tremendous strength in the hands and arms, as well as a high tolerance for pain. Injuries such as dislocated fingers are not uncommon, making this competition both traditional and somewhat extreme. Another competition that is just as unusual is the Big Nose Championship, where having a larger nose actually becomes an advantage. Participants have both the length and width of their noses measured, and the organizers use those measurements to determine the winner. Some contestants jokingly say they tried different methods before the competition to make their noses look bigger. Whether those methods actually work or not, this remains one of the most humorous and unusual events. Germany also has beard and mustache competitions, where growing facial hair is not simply a personal preference but almost becomes an art form. Contestants can compete in multiple categories, ranging from natural beards to elaborately styled creations. Some participants spend a great deal of time curling, twisting, and shaping their facial hair into complex structures, turning their faces into creative displays for the judges and audience. In Ludwigsburg, the atmosphere is completely different at its large-scale pumpkin festival. More than 500,000 pumpkins can be used to create giant displays shaped like animals, buildings, or imaginary characters. One of the most popular activities is the pumpkin boat race. Pumpkins, weighing more than 220 pounds, are hollowed out and turned into one-person boats. Participants have to paddle across the water while trying to keep their balance and avoid sinking before reaching the finish line. Number 3. Strange laws that exist only in Germany. When people think of Germany, many immediately picture a society that values precision, discipline, and order. But that very seriousness has also created quite a few rules that can surprise foreigners. One striking example can be found in the most ordinary parts of everyday life. In some shared spaces, men are encouraged to sit down when using the toilet in order to keep the surrounding area clean. Some places even have specific signs reminding people to do so. This is not necessarily related to gender or tradition, but mainly comes from ideas about hygiene and respect for others who use the same space. Even naming a child is not entirely up to the parents. German authorities can reject a name if they believe it could disadvantage the child, cause embarrassment in the future, or create unnecessary confusion. As a result, choosing a child's name can sometimes involve more legal considerations than foreigners might expect. This is one example of how, in Germany, individual freedom still comes with responsibility and regulations designed to protect a child's long-term interests. Another thing visitors quickly notice is that Sundays in Germany are usually much quieter than the rest of the week. Most stores, shopping centers, and supermarkets are closed, making the pace of life feel slower. Sunday is considered a time for rest, family, and quiet. Because of this, making too much noise in residential areas can lead to complaints from neighbors. Quiet hours are taken seriously by many people, especially at night or on days off. Activities such as playing loud music, drilling during home repairs, or making prolonged noise can quickly become a problem if they disturb those nearby. Number 2. The only highway with no speed limit. When people think of Germany, the Autobahn has become almost as distinctive a symbol as the country's famous car brands. What makes Germany's highway system known around the world is that some sections do not have a mandatory speed limit. For car enthusiasts, the feeling of driving on a wide road with a good surface and no speed limit sign in sight can be a very different experience. However, this does not mean that the entire Autobahn is a place where drivers can go as fast as they want. In reality, many sections still have speed limits, especially near cities, construction zones, curves, or areas considered to have a higher risk of accidents. One of the rules that most clearly reflects German organization is how traffic is handled during congestion or an accident. Vehicles must quickly create an emergency lane, allowing ambulances, fire trucks, or rescue vehicles to pass through. Cars in the left lane move to the left, while the remaining vehicles move to the right to create an open space in the middle. With the high speeds on the Autobahn, every minute can be extremely important in an emergency, so creating a rescue lane is not optional, but an important part of driving culture. Another rule that surprises many foreigners involves running out of gas on the Autobahn. This can be considered a situation that should have been prevented. Drivers are responsible for checking their fuel level and making sure their vehicle does not suddenly stop on a highway system designed for high speeds. If a vehicle stops simply because the driver failed to refuel in time, they may face a fine and also have to pay towing costs. This rule may sound strict, but it reflects a very clear German principle. If a problem can be predicted and prevented, the driver must take responsibility. Interestingly, Germany is not only home to wide roads built for high-speed driving. In the city of Reutlingen, there is also Spreuerhofstrasse, one of the narrowest streets in the world. The street is less than about 13 feet long, averages only about 16 inches wide, and at its narrowest point is only around 12 inches wide. Some taller people even have to duck to avoid parts of the roof projecting overhead. The contrast between the massive Autobahn, where cars can travel at very high speeds, and a street barely wide enough for one person to squeeze through, creates an interesting image of Germany, a country where the transportation system can be extremely modern, while still containing small, unusual historical details within its old neighborhoods. Number 1. Festivals that attract visito. If you want to experience a lively, colorful side of Germany that feels very different from its usual serious image, major festivals are one of the best places to see it. Among the most famous events, Oktoberfest in Munich has almost become a global symbol, It is not simply a beer festival, but also an opportunity for visitors to experience Bavarian culture with enormous beer tents, traditional music playing throughout the day, and thousands of people sitting together at long tables. Servers can carry multiple large mugs of beer at once, while familiar foods such as sausages, roast chicken, and pretzels are served continuously. Outside the beer tents, there are also giant Ferris wheels, roller coasters, and many attractions that create the atmosphere of a large fair. For that reason, Oktoberfest appeals not only to beer lovers but also to travelers who want to experience one of Germany's most famous festivals. When Oktoberfest comes to an end, the festive atmosphere shifts to a completely different style at the Cologne Carnival. This is one of the liveliest and most colorful events in Western Germany. For several days, the streets are filled with parades, music, and people wearing creative costumes. One of the most notable traditions is the day when women symbolically take control of the city and cut off men's ties as a playful way of showing that everyday rules are temporarily set aside. At the height of the carnival, large parade floats appear with satirical models and images, often targeting politicians, celebrities, or social issues from the year. It is this combination of fun and satire that gives the Cologne Carnival its distinctive character. If the Cologne Carnival stands out through sound and crowds, then the Berlin Festival of Lights attracts visitors through light. Over the course of several days, Berlin's famous landmarks are transformed into giant displays through projection mapping, LED effects, and animated imagery. Historic sites such as the Reichstag, Charlottenburg Palace, and the Victory Column become canvases for international artists to project light artworks onto. When night falls, the whole city feels like an open-air gallery where old architecture is combined with modern technology.